I started cutting my budget last year after we had the best quarter we've ever had in history, right? And we're sitting in EOS and everybody's like, the fuck is wrong with you? And I can tell you a couple of times people have tried to come buy us. And one of the things that greatly surprised me was what kind of valuation we got for a property management business. I'm not a fan of the ISA model because it's just too sticky in my opinion.
Hey, it's Jon Cheplak, and I am super stoked for you to sit down and enjoy the conversation I had with the number one team in Maryland for 3 years standing, Brandon Brittingham, who also has 2,000 properties in his property management courses, investments, all kinds of great things as we break down what is he doing in this marketplace today, closing probably on track to do 1,000 transactions with 20 agents. That's a curious one. And so much more. We're going to dive deep. Enjoy the conversation. Welcome to the Reside Platform podcast, where we go deep with people that are in the trenches getting it done. And gosh, there's so many great operators out there. This is a special operator, a special friend, someone I've worked with for many years and watched the growth of his business. Brandon Brittingham runs the number one team in Maryland for 3 years in a row now. He has over 2,000 properties under management in his property management portfolio, owns a bunch of them himself personally. He's got a syndication fund that he's launched in the last year. And all I know is, all I see across the internet is happy people posting copies of their checks on their returns, man. We'll talk about that. He's got a property management course that's been, in play for 2 years. Plus, I believe that has impacted many people throughout the industry, helped people launch property management divisions that are thriving now in addition to their real estate business. And then just in the last year, he launched a mastermind, an annual mastermind membership where investors from all walks, not just the real estate business, can come in and they share and mastermind on how to grow their wealth. My man, Brandon Brittingham, thanks for being here, brother.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Let's do this. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. And this is what you and I are all about. Backstories are great and wonderful, and we've all got one, but people want to get to know what's going on right now, especially in this marketplace. Here we are sitting in the middle of August. The market's changed. And talk to us. Let's go into the team. What have you done? And by the way, let people know how many agents are on your team and number of transactions per person productivity. So tell them that real quickly, number one, but also then number two, share with us, break it down what you have changed in your business as the market's changed.
Yeah. So we've got about 20 agents and we will trend probably around close to 1,000 transactions this year. Productivity per agent is pretty high. It's kind of funny is last June, we settled 120 transactions that month. And I don't want to say I wasn't happy, but at the end of that month, I said, we got to start cutting shit out because this is not realistic. And I also saw the writing on the wall where one of the first mentors I ever had told me, you can get rich by selling houses, you get wealthy by owning them. And, years ago, I saw the writing on the wall that the path to wealth in this business was through the investment side, right? Obviously, the team is the vehicle that feeds a lot of different things, as you and I talk about all the time. But I really started to concentrate and focus on the investment side, building a property management business, building an investment side of my business. And so that has helped us because it's extremely profitable. They all feed into each other. And, what we did was we really looked at the shit that didn't make sense we were spending money on. And, we really honed in on what makes sense. And, it's funny. I had you in my head last night. I had a huge operator call me last night And he's like, man, I just let 50 of my agents go. And he was like, what's working, what's not working. And I kind of have the same conversations you and I have is like, look, man, we're going full tilt on accountability and standards. And the conversations I'm having with a lot of people are the same, which is, we got away from a lot of things that got us here where the market was really, really strong because we could. So, we have like focused and skinny down to the lead sources that make sense, that have the highest ROI, that have the highest lift, rather than having 10 lead sources that our agents are looking at that put them in overwhelm. We've bumped down to our CRM and the things that are working. And then we've just gone just completely, full fucking tilt on, standards and expectations. And it's really, really working. I'll tell you, I don't think I shared this with you Monday, but one of the things we got really, really, really like fucking just neurotic on. We're a Zillow Flex partner. We got neurotic on our Zillow Flex standards, and we're at about like 18% conversion rate monthly from, leads that come in versus closings, which is unfucking heard of.
Wow. Well,
So,
and let me ask you this one real quick, because here's the key question. Just so people get all the backfill, because you and I always get, like I say, yeah, I hear the service story, but you and I know there's more to the story. Have you adjusted your commission splits at all in this time for iterations?
no, I mean, we've not changed our model in a really, really long time. Again, we all know there's 100 ways to do this business. However, I don't want to say we're in times of crisis, but when things are unstable, the last thing you do is go change and shit. Because then I think it shows you're unstable as a leader. So no, we've not.
Why do you think your people, because we know how it gets out there, man. Why do you think your people, because listen, you've had to ratchet down accountability, you had to ratchet down standard. It's a behavior shift. I see this in defense of agents because they don't think, and this is not judgmental or better than. I mean, the bottom line is, Brandon, I don't care if they sell 0 houses on the 1st of September, you're writing another check. You're stroking another check for the bills. They've been programmed. I mean, the consumer trained them that this was a way to do it. And so there's this mindset shift. And, a lot of humans, when someone's saying, hey, you got to do something different, there can be resistance. And we've seen a lot of attrition take place. How have you been able to, because this is a challenge people have, while you ratchet up the standards, ratchet up the accountability, how come you're retaining your people? Because I can't remember on a coaching call in literally, and because listen, I got calls where it was 30%, 50% attrition. When's the last time we had a trauma, a bad situation over a productive agent leaving or retention issues in your organization? When?
5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah. Why is that? What's happening, man?
So I think it's a combination of things. I think it's a lot of things that I've learned from you, which is number one, if your people know that you care, and they know that you understand and you get behind it, they'll go to war for you. That the accountability and the framework that we put around them is not just from a profitability standpoint. It's because we give a shit of, making them productive human beings. Then I also think it goes into, it starts in the recruiting process of saying, look, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, you're coming to play for a championship organization. This is probably one of the hardest things you're ever going to deal with in your life. And we want to tell you this shit up front. I'm not going to sell you the dream. You're going to absolutely get fucking your ass kicked and get DDT'd off the top rope multiple times. Are you going to be able to tolerate and deal with this shit? Because if not, I'm going to tell you now, you're not going to fit, because we're going to completely break you. You're joining the Navy SEALs. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard. However, we are going to celebrate you as a champion if you make it through the other side. And I promise you, if you can get through this, it's going to spill over to all kinds of shit in your life. It's how you do one thing, it's how you do everything. And, I think that's, we've built, it's kind of almost like a championship sports organization where The locker room has become sacred. It's a safe space where people can talk about their problems. They can share with each other. They can help each other. We go to team dinners together. We spend a lot of time together. We are super, super close. And, I think it's one of the things that I think has been a catalyst to all this is how much you've poured into me to learn how to become a good leader and how to lead other people. I mean, I remember one of the first conversations me and you had way back when was, look, dude, KPIs and this and that. Oh, cool. That shit's cool. Oh, great. But if you don't figure out your leadership, none of the shit's going to work. So you figure out the leadership, all the other shit's going to fall into place. So I think it's me figuring out that and then establishing a chain of leadership underneath me that would think and echo the same things that I would do. Because like you've always told me, your culture in your building and your company is your subculture. So I think doing that, and then the thing is, when you put an extreme amount of accountability in all this, the right people will stay with you. The wrong people get pushed out, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I think, and I want to go further on this because what you're talking about is, we're drivers, we're hunters, we're hunt, kill, eat. I mean, that's just how it is. And we just don't understand. I mean, that was my biggest growth moment that I had to have. And I think two things I look at two, and there's some great men on the leadership team too. But I think two things that I identify and watch, I want people to hear is there's a special skill set that a woman has in leadership that just men do not have. I'm sorry. They have empathy nailed, and that's why you see such great women in leadership. And you look at Charlene, and you look at your marketing department. I mean, you've got two workhorses, fair enough, that are, and here, I mean, who's driving, from a property management to, you've got a powerhouse woman in your property management division too, still, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Several.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So what Brandon's pointing out here, although we opened up and we talk about numbers and transactions and things, that's the science part of it. What great leaders do, like Brandon, is they move over to the art of it, and that's that empathy, that's emotional maturity and emotional intelligence that has really moved the needle for you.
Yeah, and I want to make a point on this because this is also something that I learned from you. I think it's you said this to me on a coaching call too, a couple of weeks ago, where you said, one thing you've mastered is your highs are not the highs of highs, and your lows are not the lows of lows. So I think the reality of that is I've learned how to emotionally be a good quarterback. It's fourth quarter, we're down by 7, 15 seconds left. If I got the ball in my hand, I'm not panicking. Do you know what I mean? Like, I relish in that situation of look, I'm going to lead us down the field and score the touchdown. And so I think that having that emotional intelligence of being in calm all the time in chaos has really helped that transitions into my organization. Then the flip side of that is, as we all know, as you know, that when you are a leader, sometimes you have to have very tough and uncomfortable conversations. And sometimes, you can get emotional in those conversations. The good about that with me is what my people have learned is that if I am pissed off, I'm really pissed off. and that rarely happens. So they respect it from a standpoint of, I'm not a fucking loose cannon of, I just get pissed off at the drop of a hat. I try to process it and take my emotion out of it before I make a decision. But there are times when I go into emotion because I have to, and then my organization respects it because they rarely see that side of me losing, my even keel, if that makes sense.
Really, really good. It's just, your people go as you go. They do. Well, one piece, just kind of jumping in quickly operationally, is because it's, everyone does it a little bit differently. You look at that volume per agent. How many ISAs? Do you still have the ISA model in place? Let people know about that or not? And if so, what's that look like? How many do you have?
So, it's funny. I was having a conversation last night with another big operator. So what we did was we went to this is what I have found to be the most productive for us consistently. We went to a shift, like running shift model. So in my organization, I have leaders in different rooms. So, new agent comes in, they get assigned to the leader. They're all painted different colors: orange room, green room, blue room, and which creates this. Another thing I learned from you, creates this competitive tension. Where it makes people rise to the occasion, so the rooms compete with each other. But it's good. It's a good thing, right? And so what happens is the different rooms are on leads, and it runs in shifts. So then what it does is they're mentally prepared for when it's their shift. They're not on leads nonstop. One thing I think we've all found is if you give an agent too many leads, you put them in overwhelm, they shut down, they just don't do anything.
Yeah.
So what we've done is we've done it in shifts to make it manageable. Then it's trackable. Then it becomes competitive. It becomes fun. Then also it creates a little bit of scarcity, because it's like you just can't get leads anytime. You're only going to get leads when you get on shifts. So then they have a way better intention with the lead, because they're like, shit, I might not be on the shift again for another week, so I better get my shit together with this. So that's the one thing that we found that has worked the best. Look, there's 100 different ways to do it. I'm not a fan of the ISA model because it's just too sticky, in my opinion. I'd rather have my agent talk to the lead, have the conversation. There's not additional pass off. There's not additional follow up. There's not additional this. There's not additional that. Listen, I've tried it 900 different ways. The best way, and I've got all the data to show it, is running it in shifts has always worked the best for us.
And so then you've got basically a shift leader, a squad leader,
Yep.
a team leader. It's from a space of volunteerism. Like they choose to do it. Do they get a piece of the action of their group, or how's that work?
Yeah, it's funny. You and I have been hanging out for a long time, so it's kind of funny from a standpoint of like listening to shit that you would tell me when I was younger with you, and I was like, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. And then, goddamn, he was right again. The funny thing about that is, as far as one of the things that you had said to me the right time, a long time ago, is you said, look, if you create the right culture, people will start to raise their hand to lead in your organization.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, that is the dumbest shit I've ever heard. If I don't pay money, why would they do it? And a couple of years ago, we had 4 guys raise their hand and say, boss man, you carry a lot of shit on your shoulders. We know they're broad, but that there's no way you can effectively do all this. And they raised their hand and said, let it go. And so then that's so now I'm going to answer your question, but this is important.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing is when someone comes in, when people want to leave your organization, it's for a couple of reasons. Bad boss, no career path, compensation's not clear. So the cool thing is now when someone comes in, after a little bit they've been with us, we can career path them and say you can become a leader, and that's what this looks like. So yeah, they get a piece of the action when they mentor agents, but then they get perks like I tee them up on deals. We do cool shit. I might take them to a UFC fight. I might take them to a mastermind, put them in the room with you, put them in the room with Ryan Stewman, whatever the case is. So it's not just money. It's I really invest into their personal development. And because that to me is worth more than money. So, but then that also gives the new agent kind of that thing to look forward to, that like, look, shit, if I step up and I want to volunteer, although it's not necessarily a paid position, you're going to get rewarded, and that gives someone a career path to look forward to.
Like what we talked about, and it's how you operate. We're in for-profit businesses, but I can show time and again where I have, and those that we run with, and hopefully that we get coach, lead, and mentor to keep what you and I have. We got to keep giving it away, and you're passing that down. I think I want to point out to everyone is that what he's talking about is, and what I'm pointing out here is replacing yourself on a daily basis. The end result, I'm not talking about the primary result, hiring someone to replace you. I'm talking about transferring down your knowledge, your skill set, your principles and values, because people see Brandon volunteer, they see him contributing to the industry, and so they also relate it to his success, and so naturally that just trickles down into the culture big time. I mean, really, really good. That's awesome. Let's flip over into how you took this platform of the real estate team and real estate transactions and have expanded it into let's talk about the property management thing, which was really, really nice for you and has been, and probably continues to be when many people had inventory issues, the built-in inventory thing. But talk about the building of that quickly. But I think what's also more important, just so people are aware, I mean, this is an opportunity for us to educate folks and share what works, but also so they have an opportunity. You took what you've done in creating the property management division, and now you created a course, and you've helped people build massive property management divisions in just the last 2 years. So talk a little bit about the building of that, the vision of it, how it came together, and then also share with us how you're contributing back by your course that many folks have purchased and put into action and had great success with building theirs.
Yeah, so it was one of those things where as we were building the team, I just saw this as another massive opportunity, right? You build a team because you see the opportunity for leverage in this business, and this ability to solve a problem that a single agent just cannot do on their own. So when I looked at the property management business, one of the things that I saw was no one wakes up and says, I want to start a property management company because it's a tough business. So it was kind of like there was the huge property management businesses that are the nationals, and then it was the small mom and pops that didn't do a really good job, and there was nothing in between. So, what I saw was an opportunity was to beat the mom and pops. And, we weren't going to go national, but we could get a good, sizable chunk of the market by taking the same principles that we run a real estate company on and, doing it on a property management standpoint. And then the opportunities that come out of that, properties for you to buy to keep. When a landlord wants to sell a property, being able to sell it, converting those tenants into buyers, all the ancillary things that have come out of it. I mean, it's a good, I'd say 20 to 25 million a year in volume that comes out of the property management side. Sometimes it's bigger than that. We had 1 year where it was around 40 to 50 million. So it becomes a huge feeder system. But then here's the other thing. We all know this, in the sales business, the first of the month, start over. The great thing about property management is most people that buy properties, seasoned investors, are going to keep them for a very long time. So once you get your property management business to a sizable amount, it typically you don't get a ton of attrition if you do a good job. So the cool thing about it is you can get it to a point where it is really a fixed cost, fixed income business. It's very predictable. And I can tell you a couple of times people have tried to come buy us. And one of the things that greatly surprised me was what kind of valuation we got for our property management business. And it was because it is a residual business that has predictable income every month. And for the most part, you typically, in most cases, if you have a good property management business, your attrition rate, the accounts that you put up every year, doesn't go below your attrition. So you're usually always net positive in accounts. And then once you get to a certain amount, it's fucking residual income. It's mailbox money. So it's a, don't get me wrong, it is a tough business. It is a child that never grows up and is always in trouble.
That's certainly good.
But if you've got good people to run it, at scale, it becomes really, really cool and lucrative, and there's a lot of really neat things that you can do with it, and it becomes a feeder system into everything that we're talking about. You know what I mean?
Really good. So while you were building that, what made you decide to do a course and talk about, share some great examples, folks? I mean, Carl Sanfilippo is one that stands out to me. I mean,
Yeah, Carl. Well, I knew,
he's a real deal.
yeah, I knew Carl was going to do well, just because he's just a massive operator. So here's what it is, right? It's the same thing that the reason why I started a team. You know what I mean? I think that from a higher power and spiritual level, I believe there's certain people in this world that are just chosen to do certain things. And, I think that when I understood that I was good at this business a lot better than most people, I kind of felt like I had a responsibility to teach what I learned to other people. That's why I started a team. Then the brutal climb to build a property management business, I was like, man, there's nobody talking about this or teaching this to people. So I was like, I feel again like I have a responsibility to do this. So that's why, I did it. I mean, I think that if you run a team and you run a business and your leadership, you have some coaching, training, teaching. It's just in you. It's a burning desire that we have, and it doesn't go away. So it's kind of like anytime we learn a skill, a prime example is like one of the things I love to do the most. You and I were doing jobs together, sitting in those breakout rooms and helping people solve their problems is, one of the most rewarding things for me to do to spend my time, right? So I think the flip side of that is when you take somebody like Carl, Kelly Salter's another one that I worked with that's done very well, where you take somebody like that, you teach them something, and, like, shit, not that long ago, dude, Carl was like, sending me a text. He's like, bro, he's like, dude, I'm so glad that we connected. He's like, I've built another massive arm of my business that is turning into all kinds of different other things. And he's like, I couldn't have done it without you educating me on this process. And he's just like, I'm super grateful that you're willing to do this for me. So that's the very rewarding part of doing it. And that's why I do it.
Super, super good. That's awesome. So, final question for you. And that course is online and available. Final question for you: who's gonna survive and thrive? Because we're always seeing unfortunate fallout. Who's gonna survive and thrive in 2024, and who's not? In its simplest of terms, in this marketplace.
So I couldn't get on here and not say this. If you're in real estate and you run a big team, you've got to figure out the investment side of taking some of your money, buying houses, building out an investment side, getting into flipping properties, wholesaling properties, whatever the case is, multifamily, understanding that side. That is where true and real wealth is built. I mean, it just is. So that's a side note, but who's going to win is going to be great leadership and the people that don't waver on standards. I think that's, and I think another thing that's super important, we are really, really good friends, with Sammy Knight. We both are good friends with Sammy Knight. I was on a call with him the other night, and he's got a bunch of shit in his car. Once we're like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm going to get office supplies. Like, what the hell are you getting office supplies? He said, because that's where I see the biggest leak in the P&L. And I'm thinking to myself, man, that dude's got a net worth that's an international phone number, and he's going and picking up office supplies, but that's how he got there. So I think the other way you're going to get there and you're going to win, yeah, you got to be brutal with your P&L, man. we're all leaking somewhere, or go through that shit and make somebody else sit in the room and justify with you why you're spending money on that shit, and look at everything. I mean, I'm talking about like, I mean, we're going to like, does it make sense to have this many, G Suite accounts? Like, Dropbox, this, that. I know that sounds crazy, but, I remember, I remember Sammy saying to me, small piles make big piles if you let them get out of hand. And so, looking at all those things and seeing doesn't make any sense because, the reality of it is that, and let me quantify this. I started cutting my budget last year after we had the best quarter we've ever had in history, right? And we're sitting in EOS and everybody's like, the fuck is wrong with you? And I said, the fucking storm is coming. And I'd rather be ahead of it to behind it, because as you know, some of the stuff takes time. You got vendors you're in contracts with and, things like that. So the reality of it is, although this year from a unit standpoint, we are down, from a profitability standpoint, we are up because our expenses are way, way down. So, that's where you're going to fucking win.
Yeah, really good. Awesome. Brother, as always, I appreciate your time and your contributions, and we'll certainly do it again. Keep rocking, being an example out there, and support the growth of others personally and professionally. Thanks, man.
Thank you, brother.